Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. You've got Becky, John, and Will here to have some wonderful conversations with you about everything digital advertising. Today, we wanted to hop into your thread and talk to you a little bit about bid strategies. A lot of times when I'm talking to people, they'll try to explain to me what bid strategies they've tried, what's working for them, what's not working for them. Sometimes it seems like maybe they understand, other times it seems like maybe they don't. So we thought it would be great to kind of fill you in on our opinions on bid strategies, how they work, where they work best, and kind of how to understand what is and is not working as well. So I'm going to hand a lot of this conversation over to John and Will so that they can discuss things that even I need educated on. John?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to dive into all the various bidding strategies that Google offers, which is more than you might think. And we'll talk through kind of some of the different scenarios and reasons why you might want to use one bidding strategy versus another. So let's start out with kind of what you might consider the base level potential bidding strategy, which is manual cost per click bidding. So this is where you tell Google that I am willing to pay up to X amount for a click on my ad. You could put whatever number it is that you're willing to pay, and then Google says, all right, we're going to look at the auction, and we can bid up to whatever that dollar amount is, whatever that cent amount is that you add as the manual bid level. Will, can you talk us through, what are the pros and cons of this strategy, and what's an example maybe of an advertiser or when an advertiser might want to use that strategy?
Manual CPC is going to give you the most control over what you're paying for a specific click on your ads. As we're going to talk about here in a little bit, you're not using any automation, so you are taking full control over, hey, I want to spend this amount and no more. You're not letting Google take into account likelihood of conversion or any other action that you may see as desirable. So this can be a good way to figure out what the costs are for different keywords. If there's a lot of competition for some keywords, not so much on others, you may find a good way to segment and look at certain keywords that are less expensive for you given your business. And it will also allow you to kind of think through what you may want to focus on. So it's a good initial strategy that we use oftentimes for those that we want to eventually move to some of the other bid strategies we're going to talk about, but it gives you a good idea over what those costs may be. Typically, we are going to use manual CPC with the E-CPC. So E-CPC, or enhanced cost per click, is manual CPC. You're not taking any automation, you're not taking any actions like conversions into account. When you enable E-CPC, or enhanced cost per click, as part of that, what you're asking Google to do is now look at the conversion actions that you have set up and proactively increase the bid a certain amount based on what is most likely to drive a conversion. And so now you're layering that on top of the manual bid that you put in place, and you're asking Google to prioritize traffic for users that are most likely to convert versus those that maybe looking around, maybe based on the data points and data sets that Google has, are not likely to convert. And so that allows you to more accurately focus your budget on traffic that's going to actually convert, either fill out a form on your website, call, or purchase through your website.
Exactly. Yeah, so with manual CPC, it's not taking any conversion data into account when it bids. One other important thing is that if it's really important for you to use bid adjustments, so let's say you want to bid more or less for mobile traffic versus desktop traffic, or more or less on weekends versus weekdays, things like that, you can add bid adjustments to those things. And if you're using manual CPC bidding, Google will honor those bid adjustments. But when you use some of the other, what they call smart bidding, the conversion-based bidding strategies that we'll talk about, Google does not honor those adjustments. So that's something a lot of people don't realize. They think, oh, I'm bidding, half as much on mobile. But if you're using like Target CPA bidding, for example, that we'll talk about in a moment, you're actually not bidding half as much for mobile. Google ignores that bid adjustment on those smart bidding strategies. And in terms of when would we use manual CPC, it's not something we use a lot anymore. Sometimes it makes sense to use that when you're just starting out and you're trying to collect a bunch of data, kind of feed Google's system to figure out what's converting and what's not converting, so that you can then move to a conversion-based bidding strategy. Sometimes we'll do manual CPC there. Sometimes we'll do maximize clicks for that as well, which is the next bidding strategy we'll talk about. And I'll see a lot of advertisers who are like, hey, I want to maximize, I want to get as many impressions as possible. I want to be at the top of the page as much as possible. They'll set a really high max CPC. They'll use manual bidding for that. There's actually a better way to accomplish that. It's called target impression share bidding. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. So just seeding what's coming. So that's manual CPC, and that's enhanced cost per click, or enhanced manual CPC. After that, I'd say probably maximize clicks would be a good one to talk about. Will, can you briefly describe what maximize clicks bidding is?
So maximize clicks, as the name implies, is trying to prioritize getting as much traffic through your ad to your site as possible. So maximize clicks is going to allow you to do that from Google's perspective as efficiently as possible. Again, it's important to remember that, like manual CPC, it's not prioritizing traffic that's more likely to convert than others. All it's trying to do is get you as much traffic, as many clicks through your ad as possible given your budget. And so that's going to change depending on how much budget you have allocated, but it's a great way, especially initially, if you've got a new campaign set up and you just need to get data through there. It's going to fill that through, and then based on the results that you see, what traffic's converting, what's not converting, you're likely going to begin getting enough data there to walk up the conversion ladder there, so to speak, to something like maximize conversions and the others that we'll talk about. But maximize traffic there is just going to allow you to get as many as possible, but not taking into consideration other conversion actions.
Exactly. So the constraint for maximize clicks bidding is what your daily budget is. Say it's $100. Google's going to look at it and say, okay, how can we try and get as many clicks for you as possible out of that $100 today? Now, the potential downside, like you alluded to, Will, is cheap traffic doesn't always equal quality traffic. So if those 100 clicks are not actually relevant to you because they're all, really cheap things that no one else is bidding on because they're not relevant, and that's why you get a good price for them, then that's not helpful. And so that's a danger you have to be aware of, but at the same time, it also can be a very good strategy for, like you said, seeding the system, getting a bunch of click data in, seeing which of those clicks convert, and then once you have enough data, switching to a conversion-based bidding strategy so that you can optimize towards your KPIs. And I would say a lot of the time when we start new campaigns for clients, especially if they're brand new to the platform and there's not much historic data in the account, we'll often use either maximize clicks or manual CPC or enhanced CPC to feed that data into the system to get that conversion data to the place where we can then switch to a smart bidding strategy. So next up, let's talk about maximize conversions. So same idea as maximize clicks, except that this one is based upon conversion data. And so again, the constraint for maximize conversions bidding is the daily budget. If you have a $100 daily budget, Google's going to look and see, okay, let me bid in a way that will maximize the number of conversions we can likely get from that budget today based upon the conversion data you already collected and Google's understanding of which search terms are more or less likely, which people are more or less likely to convert into a conversion. You're not telling Google a target cost per conversion in this paradigm. You're not saying I want $50 cost per conversion. You're just saying, here's my daily budget, get me as many conversions as possible. And so it can be a good strategy. It is conversion oriented, which is good. We want to be generally using conversion oriented bidding strategies once we have conversion data, because they generally work more efficiently than bidding strategies that don't take conversions into account. Now, maximize conversions is often kind of a bridge into then what they call target CPA bidding, which is where you say, don't just get me as many conversions for my budget as possible. You say, hey, I want to, on average, pay X amount per conversion. Let's say I want to pay $50 per conversion. And that's something you're going to want to come to an understanding based upon what's a lead worth to you. What are your conversion rates? There's a whole math that we apply with our clients to work our way back from what's the value of a customer, what's their close rate, et cetera, to see what is a target CPA, what should that be in your campaign. And the higher the target CPA is, the more aggressive you are enabling Google to be in getting traffic. So if you have a $100 target CPA versus a $50 target CPA, with the $100 target CPA, Google can be twice as aggressive at driving you more traffic. But obviously, each of those conversions is going to cost you more. So there's always this water level between volume of conversions and how much you have to pay per conversion. And that is largely controlled by where you set that target CPA. And we'll often test, going up, going down to see how that volume how that water level is impacted. Anything you want to share, Will, that comes to mind about Target CPA?
Target CPA can be a great bid strategy that may be where you stop as far as the conversion ladder goes, because maybe the phone calls, the form submissions that you're driving your site, there's not a specific value, revenue value that you can tie to those. So if all of your phone calls, all of your form submissions have the same exact value, then this may be where you end up stopping, because you recognize, hey, this is how much I want to spend on these. It's $10, it's $20, etc. And then you can play around with sliding that back and forth based on your budget, based on the value coming in from those leads, based on what the market looks like on Google and how much that's going to cost you. So just keep those things in mind. You have to have conversion tracking installed for this to work, whereas with manual cost per click and maximize clicks, you don't. But this is a great tool to use, especially if all of your conversions are the same. There's no additional value on some and less value on others.
Exactly. Yeah, so great fit, in particular for lead generation businesses. If you're an e-commerce business, then usually we're going to go one more step to maximize conversion value and target return on ad spend, which we'll talk about here next. But if you're, like you said, well, if you're a let's say a lead gen business and you don't really have a difference in value per lead, you just want as many leads as possible, then Target CPA is often where you'll end up after things are optimized. Let's talk about maximize conversion value bidding next. Can you describe what that is?
So maximize conversion value bidding is where you're now no longer only looking at the number of conversions that a campaign drives, but you're looking at the actual value tied to those conversions coming from that campaign. So if you're an e-commerce business and someone goes on your site and they buy product A, then that value is going to be imported into Google Ads, into that campaign. And so if it's $10, that value is going to be imported. If it's $100, that value is going to be imported. And you want to have dynamic tracking set up so that if you are an e-commerce business and you have different values for different products, you want that to be accurately reflected in your account. Maximize conversion value bidding allows your Google campaign to optimize for traffic that's going to drive the highest amount of value for you based on the information that you're importing.
Exactly, and especially if you're, say, an e-commerce business, not every order is created equal. If you're using Target CPA bidding as an e-commerce business, you're telling Google that you equally value an order that's worth $10 as you value an order worth $1,000. If you're using maximize conversion value, you're telling Google, hey, I like those $1,000 orders an awful lot better than those $10 orders. Put me in front of the people that are going to get me more of those $1,000 orders. And then kind of the next step from there is target return on ad spend bidding. Can you explain what that is, Will?
Target return on ad spend bidding. Now you're not only asking Google to look at, okay, drive as much traffic to my website based on what's going to potentially drive the most value, but you're asking Google to balance that with how much you're willing to spend. So you're asking Google to look at, okay, if I spend $100 on my Google Ads campaign, I want to drive at least $1,000 in revenue, just as an example figure. So you may have a 200% return that you're looking to achieve, or a 500% return, so 2x, 5x. What you're asking Google to do is take those figures into consideration, take the value that you're importing from the conversions that you've set up in Google, and then balance that with the amount of spend you're willing to allocate to those conversions, and drive as many conversions as possible that fits that criteria. So a 2x return, 5x return, etc. Something that you may find is that just like with Target CPA bidding, and the higher the CPA that you set, the more aggressive Google is. The lower the ROAS goal you set, you may find Google is more aggressive. And so it's, again, a balance of finding as much volume, conversion revenue coming through there as possible, while still hitting the targets that you need to be profitable.
Yep, and ROAS as a phrase is getting a bit of a bad rap right now, especially when people are talking about media efficiency ratio versus ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend. We made a separate video talking about that and how you should think about return on ad spend, how you should think about media efficiency ratio. So go watch that if you're if you're thinking through, well, should I even use target ROAS as a bidding strategy? We have some thoughts there. So those are, I think that's it in terms of what Google calls smart bidding, which is bidding strategies that take conversions into account. So those first two that we talked about, first three we talked about, don't take conversions into account, and then the next ones we talked about take conversions into account. These last ones that we're going to talk about are a little bit different. So target impression share, let's talk about that next. Target impression share is really a fit for advertisers who want to get as many impressions and really dominate particular keywords as much as possible. It's not a conversion-based bidding strategy, and it's not an efficient strategy. You're usually going to see higher cost per clicks. You might get clicks that aren't likely to turn into sales. But if your goal is every time someone searches for a particular phrase, I want to be at the top as much as possible, this is what you're looking for. Essentially, with target impression share, you can tell Google, I want my ads to appear in a particular location on the SERP, on the search engine results page. So you have what they call absolute top, which is position number 1. And then they have what they call top, which is anywhere above the organic results that an ad appears. So it could be 1, 2, 3, or 4 slots. So you could tell Google, I want to be at the top, or I want to like at the very top, position number 1, or somewhere in the top 1, 2, 3, or 4 ads as much as possible. And you can set a percentage on that. You can say, I want to be there 100% of the time, or 70% of the time, or whatever. So you have some control over what you're asking Google to do for you. Now, there's not a guarantee. Google can't guarantee you the position number 1. There will still be plenty of situations where an advertiser may have better ad rank and outrank you. But you're telling Google, whenever possible, I want this position. And you can set a bid cap on that. So you can say, whenever possible, but don't spend $100 per click. So you could put that in there just to kind of hedge your bets a little bit, because Google can get crazy sometimes and charge an awful lot per click. So if you want to avoid that, you can still set a threshold, a cost per click threshold beyond which you don't want to pay for a single click. But that's, again, a good strategy if you're not as oriented towards efficiency of conversions and you're oriented towards dominating your market, getting as much traffic as possible, regardless of conversion rate. Then after that, we're going to talk about a couple that are more in the Google display and YouTube arena. So we've got cost per view bidding. This is specifically on the YouTube side of things, and this is where you're telling Google that you can afford to pay up to X amount per view of your YouTube ad. Generally, we're going to be talking about very low numbers, 1 to 5, 10 cents potentially in that range. Sometimes higher, sometimes lower, depends on the client, but typically we're talking about that kind of a benchmark. And so you're saying to Google, all right, you can pay up to 1 cent or 5 cents or whatever it is per person who views my video ad. And then kind of similar to that, you have, they call it Target CPM, or cost per mil, which means cost per 1,000 impressions. This is really if you're doing more of a brand awareness play and you care about how many times your ad is being there's an impression of your ad is being served, regardless of how many people are actually engaging with it or clicking through to your website. This is more on the display and YouTube side of things, and so not as much really for the performance marketing side of things, more for the brand awareness side of things. But you can say, hey, I can afford to pay $1 or $5, $10, whatever it is, per 1,000 impressions of my ad, and that kind of correlates more to more traditional media forms like TV or billboards, things where usually you pay more of a CPM model based upon ad impressions. And then lastly, you've got kind of a subset of that, which is called viewable CPM. And the best way to describe this is Google is giving you a little more of a guarantee that the impression of your ad was served in a place on a page where someone could see it, which is kind of counterintuitive, but think about it this way. Let's say a page loads and serves your ad on it. Well, someone may not have scrolled down the page to get to the place where your ad placement was. So Google might say, this page loaded your ad, that's an impression, but a person may not have seen that with their eyeballs. And so with viewable CPM, you're saying, actually, Google confirm that this ad was shown in a place on the page where we know it was viewable by the person looking at the page. So you'll generally see a higher CPM, but you have more confidence that the impressions that Google is reporting to you actually were eyeballs on your ad, not just that a page loaded that had your ad on it. And I think that wraps up all the primary bidding strategies. Cool. Well, if you are running Google Ads, figuring out bidding strategies, you want help, you want to bring some experts in, we'd love to chat. You can always learn more information by checking out our YouTube channel. Tap that subscribe button. We put out lots of content like this and much else. We'll put some videos on the screen so you can check out some of those other videos. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.